opening on this island. Time does not move forward. It does not rush. It does not decay. It does not heal. It simply stops. Far from shipping lanes, beyond satellite certainty, there exists a fragment of land that modern maps refuse to acknowledge. No coordinates settle on it for long. No signal lingers. Aircraft instruments drift when passing overhead, as if reality itself hesitates to record its presence. For centuries, the island remained untouched, not because it was hidden, but because it was ignored. Until now. What drew attention to this place was not legend or myth, but absence. Weather patterns that abruptly broke apart, migratory routes that curved unnaturally around a blank space, timestamped data that arrived out of order, minutes repeating themselves, hours missing entirely. At first, scientists assumed error. They were wrong. The island does not behave like the world we know. The wind carries no urgency. Shadows fall but refuse to advance. Waves crash against the shore with mechanical patience, each one identical to the last. Even sound seems reluctant to travel far, as if afraid of being remembered. Here, cause does not reliably lead to effect. Here, age loosens its grip. History leaves no footprints. Those who have studied time speak of it as a river, relentless, irreversible. But this island is not part of that river. It is a still pool beside it, untouched by the current, where moments accumulate without passing on. And that may be the most disturbing truth of all. Because time defines us, it shapes memory, identity, consequence. Without it, progress becomes meaningless, and existence becomes unstable. What happens to a human mind when yesterday refuses to become tomorrow? When the body does not agree with the calendar? When every step forward leads nowhere? No one knows. Only a handful have ever set foot on the island, and none stayed long enough to understand it fully. Some returned with instruments full of contradictions. Others returned changed, unable to explain what they had lost. A few never returned at all. This is not a story about discovery. It is a story about trespass, about a place that does not welcome observation, because observation implies time, and time is the one thing this island rejects. On this island, the past does not fade, the future does not arrive, and whatever enters may never truly leave. Arrival. The island appeared without warning. One moment, the ocean stretched uninterrupted in every direction, a vast disciplined expanse of blue governed by charts, currents, and predictable mathematics. The next, a shadow cut across the horizon. Not rising from the sea, not emerging through mist, but simply there, as if it had always existed and only now decided to be noticed. No one spoke at first. The research vessel slowed instinctively, its engines dropping to a low, uncertain hum. Radar screens flickered. The island registered, vanished, then reappeared again several meters closer than before. Coordinates refused to stabilize. Each attempt to lock a position produced a slightly different result, as though the landmass itself were shifting. Not physically, but conceptually. Dr. Eleanor Weiss stood at the bow, binoculars lowered, her expression unreadable. She had led expeditions into collapsing glaciers, radioactive exclusion zones, and deep-sea trenches where sunlight had never reached. Yet none of those places had felt like this. This island was not hostile, it was indifferent. The shoreline revealed itself slowly. Dark rock smoothed by waves that struck with uncanny regularity. No foam lingered. Each wave collapsed and withdrew with identical timing, for identical sound, as if copied and replayed. Vegetation rose behind the rocks in rigid layers, trees clustered too evenly to be natural, their leaves unmoving despite the wind reported by onboard instruments. Wind speed reads 12 knots, said Mateo Alvarez, the meteorologist, staring at his tablet. But look at that! The trees did not sway. Flags on the deck snapped sharply in the breeze, ropes creaked, loose equipment rattled, but the island remained still, sealed behind an invisible boundary. Localized atmospheric anomaly? Offered Dr. Chen, the physicist, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it. No, Eleanor replied. Atmosphere doesn't just stop. As they drew closer, the sense of wrongness intensified, not as fear, but as contradiction. The human mind expects continuity, cause and effect, motion and response. The island obeyed none of these rules. Distance became difficult to judge. At times it felt impossibly far, the shoreline distant and unreachable. Seconds later, it seemed almost within arm's reach. Time, too, began to behave strangely. Onboard clocks still ticked, but not in agreement. Eleanor's wristwatch lagged behind the ship's master clock by nearly 2 minutes. Mateo's digital watch jumped forward 30 seconds without explanation. Dr. Chen's chronometer stopped entirely, then resumed as if nothing had happened. Log everything, Eleanor ordered. Every discrepancy, no assumptions. The landing craft was lowered with precision rehearsed over weeks of preparation. 6 people would go ashore first: Eleanor, Mateo, Dr. Chen, biologist Sarah Melick, geologist Victor Holtz, and communications officer Lena Park. The rest of the team would remain aboard, monitoring from a distance. As the craft descended, the air changed. Not in temperature, though sensors later showed a slight drop, but in texture. Breathing felt heavier, as if the oxygen carried weight. Sound dampened. The rhythmic thrum of the ship's engines faded more quickly than physics allowed, swallowed by an oppressive quiet that pressed against the ears. "Comms check," Lena said. Static answered her. "Ship, do you copy?" Nothing. She frowned, adjusted the frequency, tried again. Silence. Not interference, no crackle, no distortion, just absence. "That's not possible," she muttered. The craft touched water without a splash. Everyone noticed. The hull met the surface, but the expected reaction? Ripples, spray, turbulence never came. The water parted smoothly, obediently, then closed again as if nothing had disturbed it. Victor leaned over the side, lowering a sensor. "Surface tension readings are normal," he said, confusion creeping into his voice. "But visually, this shouldn't happen." The shoreline drew nearer. With each meter gained, the island revealed more detail and more impossibilities. The rocks bore no signs of erosion patterns consistent with age. Layers were present, but too clean, too symmetrical, as if time had begun to work on them and then lost interest. "No debris," Sarah observed. "No driftwood, no shells, no signs of nesting. No birds," Mateo added. That was when Eleanor realized what felt most wrong. The sky above the island was empty, not cloudless. There were clouds, but motionless. They hung frozen in layered formations, shadows locked in place, refusing to advance despite the passage of time aboard the ship. Above the water behind them, clouds drifted normally, pushed by wind. Above the island, they did not move at all. It was as if the land existed beneath a different sky. The craft grounded gently against the rocks. Still no sound, no scrape, no impact. For a moment, no one moved. This was the threshold, the line no satellite had crossed, no drone had lingered beyond. The first human contact with a place that, according to modern records, did not exist. Eleanor stepped forward. Her boot touched the rock. Nothing happened. No vibration, no echo, no sense of arrival. She shifted her weight fully onto the island, half expecting some violent reaction. Collapse, resistance, a sudden surge of pain. Instead, the ground accepted her presence without acknowledgement. One by one, the others followed. The moment the last of them stepped ashore, the water behind the craft went still. The craft itself did not drift. It remained fixed in place as though anchored by something unseen. "Mark the time," Eleanor said. Mateo glanced at his watch. "Which one?" That was not a joke. They advanced slowly, each step measured, every sense alert. The silence was total, not peaceful but consuming. No insects buzzed, no leaves rustled. Even their own footsteps sounded wrong, muffled and distant, as if heard through water. Sarah knelt beside a patch of soil, brushing aside the top layer with gloved fingers. "Organic content present," she said, "but decomposition is stalled. These leaves should be breaking down. They're not." Victor examined the rock face. "Crystalline structures show signs of formation," he said, "but growth patterns are incomplete. It's like geological processes were paused mid-action." "Pause," the word hung between them. Lena tried the radio again. "Ship, this is Landing Team Alpha. Do you copy?" Static. She changed channels, boosted power, switched to emergency frequencies. Nothing. "We're cut off," she said quietly. "No," Eleanor replied. "We're out of range." "But we're less than a kilometer away." "Distance doesn't matter here." As they moved inland, the vegetation grew denser, yet remained unnaturally ordered. Trees stood in evenly spaced intervals. Branches did not overlap. Fallen trunks lay exactly where they had fallen, untouched by rot or regrowth. Then they noticed something more disturbing: their own bodies. Mateo wiped sweat from his forehead, then froze. "I've been sweating since we landed," he said, "but I don't feel tired. My heart rate hasn't changed." Sarah checked her pulse. "Mine neither." Eleanor flexed her hand, watching the motion carefully. Her fingers moved smoothly, without stiffness, without fatigue. Her breathing remained calm, steady, unchanged. "How long have we been walking?" Victor asked. No one answered immediately. They checked their watches. The answers did not match. 10 minutes, 23 minutes, nearly an hour, yet none of them felt the passage of that time. They stopped. The forest ahead opened into a clearing, a wide circular space of bare stone. At its center stood a single object, a weathered marker, half buried, its surface carved with symbols too eroded to read from a distance. "This wasn't mentioned in any scans," Lena said. "No," Eleanor replied, "because scans don't last long enough." She stepped into the clearing. The moment she crossed the boundary, a wave of vertigo struck her. Not dizziness, but disorientation of sequence. Memories surfaced out of order. Training missions she hadn't thought of in years appeared alongside thoughts she had not yet finished forming. For a split second, she had the unsettling sensation that she had already been here. Not remembered it, experienced it. She staggered, and Sarah caught her arm. "You okay?" "Yes," Eleanor said after a pause. "I think so." But she wasn't sure. The others entered the clearing and felt it too. A pressure behind the eyes, a faint ringing in the ears, the sense of standing somewhere that resisted chronology. "This place isn't just outside time," Dr. Chen said slowly. "It's incompatible with it." They approached the marker. Up close, the carvings became clearer. Not symbols, but letters. Human letters. English. Old, but not ancient. "This means someone was here before us," Mateo whispered. Eleanor traced the grooves with her glove. The stone was cool, unnaturally so, as if heat had never lingered on its surface. "Or someone tried to leave a message," she said. A sudden sound cut through the silence. A single footstep. Not theirs. They turned as one. Behind them, at the edge of the clearing, the forest stood exactly as it had moments before, unchanged, unmoving. But the sense of being alone was gone. Not replaced by presence. Replaced by attention. The island was no longer indifferent. It had noticed them. And somewhere beyond the frozen trees, beyond the sky that refused to move, something waited patiently for time to matter again. The expedition had arrived, and the island had begun to respond. The Anomaly. The Anomaly did not announce itself with spectacle. It unfolded quietly, patiently, as if waiting for the human mind to relax its defenses. At first, the island simply continued. The clearing remained unchanged, stone smooth as glass, forest frozen in perfect stillness, sky suspended in an eternal mid-moment. The team stood there longer than they realized, surrounded by data that refused to align with experience. Instruments disagreed not only with one another, but with the very idea that a single reality governed the space they occupied. Dr. Chen broke the silence with deliberate calm. "We are assuming time behaves as a continuous variable here," he said. "That assumption may already be invalid." Mateo exhaled slowly. "If time isn't continuous, then what are we measuring?" "Fragments," Chen replied. "Residuals, echoes." Eleanor watched the stone beneath her boots. The texture seemed to change depending on where she focused her gaze. Smooth when viewed directly, rough and ancient when seen from the corner of her eye. It was subtle, but persistent, like the island resisted sustained observation. "Let's isolate variables," she said. "Start small, controlled." They began with the clocks. Lena arranged them in a straight line across the clearing. Mechanical watches, digital chronometers, and an atomic-synced field device designed to remain accurate even in orbit. She synchronized them carefully, counting down aloud. 3, 2, 1, now. For a moment, all devices agreed. Chen did not answer immediately. He reached out and lifted the frozen atomic device from the ground. The display resumed instantly. He lowered it back to the stone. It stopped again. "Location," he said at last. "Not the devices, the space they occupy." Eleanor felt a tightening in her chest. "So time isn't wrong," she said. "It's uneven." "Patchwork," Chen agreed, "as if different moments are stitched together badly." They tested the boundary. Sarah took a single step back, holding the mechanical watch in her palm. The ticking normalized. Another step, and the watch lurched forward, skipping nearly a minute in a blink. She startled. "I didn't move it." "No," Mateo said quietly. "You crossed something." They marked the ground with small flags, forming a rough grid across the clearing. Within minutes, patterns emerged, or rather refused to. Some zones slowed time to a crawl, Others accelerated it violently. One pocket seemed to nullify it entirely. And the pockets shifted. Not quickly, just enough to notice if you watched long enough. They're drifting, Lena said, like currents. Or like a tension, Victor added. No one liked that interpretation. They moved on to navigation tools next. Mateo placed a compass on the stone. The needle spun wildly, unable to settle. He recalibrated it, replaced it with a backup. Same result. Then, experimentally, he held it upright. The needle snapped into alignment, not north, inward, toward the forest. Mateo swallowed. That's not a pole. Eleanor followed the direction with her eyes. The tree line seemed unchanged, dense, still, indifferent. Does it track movement? She asked. Mateo stepped sideways. The needle followed. Center-seeking, Chen murmured. Whatever this is, it has a focal point. A heart? Sarah asked. A core, Victor said. Or an anchor. They tried GPS units. None could maintain a lock for more than a second. Coordinates flickered, contradicted themselves, collapsed into nonsense. Altitude readings placed them simultaneously below sea level and kilometers above it. Then Lena stiffened. I'm receiving data, she said slowly. Eleanor turned. From the ship? Lena shook her head. No, from something else. What kind of signal? Chen asked. She hesitated. Structured, responsive, it's not noise. Mateo felt a chill. Replies? Lena didn't correct him. Silence settled over the clearing, not absence of sound, but restraint. As if the island were listening. Sarah moved toward the forest edge, needing something tangible. She knelt, examined leaves, bark, soil. Everything appeared biologically normal, until she cut a thin branch. The growth rings were wrong. Too many, packed tightly together, then none at all. Smooth wood where years should have passed. This tree aged, she said, voice low, and then stopped. Mateo forced a laugh. That's impossible. She met his eyes. So is this place. When they returned to the center of the clearing, Eleanor called for a brief pause. They stood, and then they were sitting. No one remembered lowering themselves. One moment upright, the next seated on the stone, breathing evenly, muscles relaxed. How long? Victor asked. Eleanor checked her watch. 30 seconds. Her body felt rested, deeply rested, as if hours had passed. My headache's gone, Mateo said. Sarah looked down at her knee. I scraped this earlier. The skin was unbroken. The memory remained, the injury did not. This isn't healing, Sarah whispered. Healing takes time. Shen nodded grimly. This is correction. A place where entropy loosened its grip, where the body rewound instead of decayed. Eleanor pushed herself to her feet. We document, then we leave. Even as she said it, the forest seemed closer than before. Waiting. Chen didn't answer immediately. He lifted one of the watches and stepped a few meters away. The ticking resumed normally. He stepped back. The watch slowed again. Spatial dependence, he said quietly. Time is not uniform here. It's localized. They mapped the clearing, marking invisible boundaries where clocks behaved differently. The zones did not form neat patterns. They overlapped, shifted, and occasionally vanished entirely. Standing still was enough to change readings. Observation itself seemed to influence the result. This is beyond dilation, Victor muttered. Dilation still preserves order. This doesn't. The compass behaved worse. Mateo placed it on the ground. The needle spun wildly, refusing to settle. He recalibrated it, replaced it, even shielded it. Nothing helped. Then he lifted it. The needle snapped into place, pointing inland, directly toward the forest. That's not north, he said. Eleanor studied the compass. Does it change? Mateo moved. The needle followed. Not a magnetic pole, Victor said slowly. A focal point. Sarah crossed her arms. A center. No one liked that word. GPS units were next. They failed almost immediately. Coordinates jumped erratically, sometimes placing them kilometers apart despite standing shoulder to shoulder. Altitude readings fluctuated wildly, at times suggesting they were below sea level, at others impossibly high. Lena stared at her tablet. I'm getting packets, she said. From the ship? Eleanor asked. Lena shook her head. No, from somewhere else. The signal structure was wrong, not corrupted, foreign. Responses arrived milliseconds after requests were sent, too fast to have traveled any known distance. Reflections? Mateo suggested weakly. Reflections don't answer questions, Lena replied. The clearing felt smaller now, or perhaps they felt larger. Sarah turned her attention to biology, desperate for something familiar. She examined leaves, bark, soil. Everything appeared normal until she looked closer. Growth rings and branches were compressed impossibly tight, dozens of years packed into a fraction of expected space. Then, abruptly, nothing. Smooth sections where growth should have continued but hadn't. This tree started aging, she said, and then stopped. Mateo forced a laugh. Lucky tree. Sarah didn't smile. It didn't stop because it reached equilibrium. It stopped because time stopped applying pressure. Victor examined rock samples. Crystalline structures showed incomplete formation, processes begun but never finished. Geological time itself appeared interrupted. This island isn't ancient, he said. It's paused. The word lingered. Paused. They sat down without remembering the act of sitting. One moment they were standing, the next seated on the stone, calm, breathing evenly. How long? Victor asked. Eleanor checked her watch. 30 seconds. Her body felt rested, refreshed. Mateo rolled his shoulders. That felt like hours. Sarah frowned and lifted her pant leg. I scraped my knee earlier. The skin was unbroken. The memory of pain remained. The injury did not. This isn't healing, she said. Healing requires time. Chen nodded slowly. Then this is reversal or exclusion. Exclusion from what? Lena asked. From progression, Chen replied. Shadows began to misbehave. Despite the sun remaining fixed in the sky, shadows stretched, shrank, and shifted direction. Eleanor watched her own shadow lag behind her movements, detached by a fraction of a second. She stepped forward. The shadow followed, late. Mateo waved his hand. The shadow hesitated, then snapped into place. That shouldn't happen, he whispered. No, Victor said. Shadows don't remember. A low hum vibrated through the ground, not audible, felt like pressure in the chest, like standing too close to something enormous and quiet. Lena pressed her palm to the stone. It's rhythmic, she said. Consistent. A frequency? Mateo asked. More like a pulse. Like a heartbeat, Sarah said. No one spoke. Then the clock synchronized. All of them. For exactly 60 seconds, every device ticked in perfect unison. Wind brushed the trees, leaves rustled, the hum faded, the world felt normal. Mateo exhaled in relief. It cycles. The minute ended. Time shattered. Displays glitched violently. Hands spun backward and forward simultaneously. One clock began counting down from a date decades in the future. Another displayed a time that had not yet occurred. Chen stared at the readings, his face drained of color. It's not random, he said. What is it? Eleanor asked. Selective. Nausea hit Eleanor like a wave. Memories overlapped. Past conversations intruded on present thoughts. She heard her own voice speaking words she had not yet formed. Mateo staggered, clutching his head. I remember this, he gasped. This exact moment. Victor drops. Victor's tablet slipped from his hands and shattered on the stone. Silence fell. Mateo stared in horror. I didn't see the future, he whispered. I remembered it. That's impossible, Lena said. No, Chen replied. It's inevitable if time isn't linear. The island was not predicting. It was replaying. Eleanor felt something brush against her awareness, like fingers sorting through memories. She recoiled instinctively. Pack up, she ordered. We leave. Now. Distances collapsed as they moved. Paths shortened. What had taken minutes before now took seconds. The forest felt closer, watching. The compass needle spun violently, then pointed straight down, into the ground. Mateo stopped. It doesn't want us to leave. Eleanor didn't respond. They reached the craft. Lena activated the radio. A voice answered, do not stay. Distorted, layered, familiar. The craft crossed the invisible threshold. Sound rushed back first. The slap of water against hull, the distant cry of birds, the low, familiar vibration of engines. Then motion. Then wait. Reality reasserted itself with almost insulting enthusiasm, as if eager to prove it had never been in question. Behind them, the island receded, too quickly. For a moment it seemed to fold inward, its edges blurring, not with distance but with omission, like a detail the world had decided not to retain. Then it was gone. No wake, no disturbance, no lingering trace on radar or horizon. But its absence felt deliberate, as if it had chosen not to follow. No one spoke during the return to the ship. There was nothing left to say that would not feel rehearsed or premature or already remembered. The radio remained silent, mercifully so. Eleanor stood at the stern until the sea closed fully behind them. Only then did she allow herself to look at her hands. Solid, aging, moving forward again. Time was flowing. And that frightened her more than the stillness ever had, because she understood now what the warning truly meant. The island was not a trap, it was an offer. And somewhere, outside charts and clocks and certainty, it would remain, unchanged, patient, attentive, waiting for the next moment when humanity stumbled far enough beyond its story to hear time hesitate and choose to stay. The warning. The island did not resist their departure. That in itself was unsettling. The landing craft drifted backward from the shore without effort, as if released by an unseen hand that had already lost interest. The water closed around the hull with the same unnatural smoothness as before, erasing their passage completely. No wake followed them, no ripples spread outward. It was as though their approach, and now their retreat, had never occurred. Yet the island remained. Eleanor stood at the stern, eyes fixed on the dark line of rock and forest. Distance behaved strangely once more. For several seconds, the island seemed no farther away than before, its details crisp and close. Then abruptly, it receded, shrinking faster than perspective allowed, until it was once again a distant silhouette against the horizon. "Engines nominal," came the voice of the pilot over the intercom. "No resistance." Eleanor nodded, though no one could see her. "Maintain slow withdrawal. No sudden changes." She didn't trust ease. Behind her, the others sat in silence, each lost in private recalculations of what they had just witnessed. Instruments lay scattered across the deck, some still active, others permanently frozen on impossible readings. No one touched them. Lena was the first to speak. "That transmission," she said quietly. "It wasn't pre-recorded. I checked the signal structure." Mateo looked up. "You're saying it was live?" "I'm saying it was generated in real time." "By what?" Victor asked. Lena hesitated. "By something that had access to Eleanor's voice, her cadence, her stress patterns." Eleanor felt a chill creep up her spine, or something that knew what I was going to say. No one contradicted her. They reached the research vessel without incident. As soon as the craft crossed the invisible boundary surrounding the island, sound returned in a rush. The slap of water against steel, the low rumble of engines, the distant cry of seabirds that had been conspicuously absent before. Time snapped back into place. Clocks resynchronized, GPS locked instantly. Communications flooded in as if nothing had ever been wrong. And yet none of them felt relief. They were debriefed immediately. Medical scans showed nothing unusual. No radiation exposure, no cellular abnormalities, no signs of trauma. Their bodies appeared healthy. Too healthy. Fatigue markers were lower than expected. Inflammatory responses were suppressed. "Like you've all just come out of cryosleep," the ship's doctor remarked, attempting humor. No one laughed. Eleanor insisted on reviewing the raw footage taken during their time ashore. Cameras had been running continuously, or so they believed. The playback told a different story. The first anomaly appeared 3 minutes into the recording. The image froze briefly, then resumed with a subtle jump. Audio remained intact, but out of sync. Their voices overlapped unnaturally, sentences finishing before they began. Then came the gaps. Entire segments were missing. Not corrupted, not erased, simply absent. The timestamps leapt forward without explanation. Events they remembered clearly were not recorded at all. Others appeared that none of them recalled experiencing. At one point, the footage showed the group standing in the clearing, silent, staring directly at the camera, for nearly 2 minutes. No one spoke, no one moved. Eleanor paused the video. "Does anyone remember this?" They shook their heads. Sarah's voice trembled. "That's not how it felt. I remember talking, measuring, doing something." "But you weren't," Victor said softly, "or something else had been." The discovery of the warning came later, much later, after the island had disappeared from radar entirely. They were 3 days out when Victor finally finished analyzing the stone samples collected from the clearing. Under microscopic examination, the mineral composition defied categorization, part sedimentary, part igneous, part something else entirely. Crystalline lattices overlapped in impossible ways, as if formed under mutually exclusive conditions. "Look at this," Victor said, calling the others over. He adjusted the display. Embedded within the stone, at a depth that should have required advanced tools to reach, were carvings, not random, intentional, letters, English letters, the same ones Eleanor had seen on the marker. The island had not merely been weathered by time, it had recorded it. They reconstructed the carving digitally, layer by layer, peeling back mineral growth that should not have existed. As the letters emerged, a chill settled over the room. The message was simple, 3 words. Do not stay. No punctuation, no embellishment, just a command. Mateo frowned. That matches the transmission. Yes, Lena said, but this was carved, physically. Which means someone was here long enough to do this, Sarah added. Long enough to understand the danger. And still didn't make it out, Chen said. Silence followed. Who carved it? Victor asked. And when? No one had an answer. Eleanor stared at the words, unease twisting in her chest. Run a linguistic analysis, she said. Dialect, tool marks, anything. They did. The results only deepened the mystery. The phrasing was modern, contemporary English. The tool marks suggested equipment no older than a few decades. Yet the surrounding mineral growth indicated an age of hundreds, possibly thousands of years. The island had rewritten the timeline around the message, or the message had been written outside of time. That night, Eleanor dreamed. She stood in the clearing again. The sky was frozen, the trees unmoving. The marker stood at the center, intact, but the words were different. Stay. She woke gasping, heart racing. Across the ship, others woke too. Sarah dreamed of walking deeper into the forest, her body growing lighter with each step until she no longer felt her feet touch the ground. Mateo dreamed of returning to the island alone, years older, only to find the others still waiting exactly as they had been. Lena dreamed of voices whispering through static, familiar voices, calling her by name, asking her to come back. Chen did not dream at all. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, convinced that if he closed his eyes, time might rearrange itself again. By morning, the mood aboard the vessel had shifted. The island was no longer an object of study. It was a presence. Data continued to behave oddly. Files rearranged themselves. Timestamp entries appeared out of order. At one point, a log entry dated tomorrow appeared in the system. Eleanor opened it. It was written in her own hand. The content was brief. We should have listened. Her blood ran cold. Lena, she said, keeping her voice steady, lock down the system. No external access. It already is, Lena replied. Has been since we left the island. Then how? I don't know. The ship's course was clear. They were heading back to the mainland. The expedition would be classified. The data sealed. Officially, the island would remain unacknowledged. Unofficially, none of them believed it was over. The warning weighed heavily now, stripped of ambiguity. Do not stay. Not do not return. Not do not approach. Do not stay. As if arrival was inevitable. As if curiosity would always overcome caution. As if the island did not need to pursue. It only needed to wait. Eleanor stood alone on the deck that evening, watching the horizon darken. For a moment, she thought she saw the island again, a shadow where no land should be. Then it was gone. She checked her watch. It was still ticking, still moving forward. But the comfort that once came with that motion was gone, because now she knew that time was not a guarantee. It could be bent, paused, rewritten, and somewhere beyond the edge of recorded space, there was a place where time did not move forward at all. A place that remembered those who entered, a place that warned them to leave, and waited to see who would ignore it. Closing. Some places are not meant for humans, not because they are hostile or violent or beyond our ability to survive, but because they do not belong to the same story we do. They exist outside the narrative that defines human life: birth, change, decay, and ending. We are creatures of sequence. We measure meaning by before and after. Take that away, and we are left unanchored. The island remains. Officially, it does not exist. No maps show it. No satellites track it. The data recovered from the expedition is sealed, fragmented, and deliberately incomplete. Reports cite equipment malfunction, navigational error, psychological stress, all the familiar explanations used when reality threatens to stretch beyond acceptable limits. Unofficially, the island is remembered by those who stepped onto its shore and returned carrying something they cannot name. Life moved on. At least it appeared to. The crew dispersed, reassigned to safer projects, quieter labs, familiar environments where time behaved itself. Eleanor returned to a world governed by schedules and deadlines, by clocks that agreed with one another. She aged again, slowly, predictably. Wrinkles formed where none had existed before. Scars appeared and stayed. And yet, something fundamental had shifted. She began waking at exactly the same minute every night, regardless of when she fell asleep. 3:17 a.m. Her watch always agreed. So did the clock on the wall. The consistency was comforting until she realized that the number matched a timestamp from the corrupted footage. A moment on the island when no one moved, when no one spoke. Mateo left meteorology entirely. He could no longer tolerate models that assumed continuity, systems that relied on progression. He took a teaching position instead, warning students not about storms or pressure systems, but about certainty. The atmosphere lies, and he would say. So does time. The difference is we forgive one and trust the other. Sarah published her findings on arrested biological processes, careful to remove any reference to their source. The paper was praised, then quietly sidelined. Still, she noticed changes in herself. Cuts took longer to heal than before. Illnesses lingered. It was subtle, but undeniable. Her body now behaved as if it remembered a place where healing had not been required at all. Lena stopped working in communications. She said she was tired of listening. Static made her uneasy now. Late at night, she sometimes thought she heard voices buried beneath the noise, familiar voices, asking her to come back, telling her there was still time. Chen never published anything. He vanished from the academic world entirely. The last message he sent Eleanor was short and unsettling. Time isn't broken, it's selective. The island was never found again. Ships passed through the same coordinates without incident. Satellites recorded nothing unusual. Drones sent into the area returned with clean data and empty footage. The ocean behaved as it should. The sky moved. The world continued forward, confident in its momentum. And yet, every few years anomalies appeared. A research buoy transmitting data from decades in the future. A diver resurfacing with no memory of the last 6 hours, his watch still ticking backward. A remote island reported by multiple vessels on the same day, then never seen again. Always brief, always dismissed, always forgotten. Because forgetting is easier than confronting the possibility that time is not a law, but a habit. The island does not need to chase us. It does not need to expand or announce itself. It exists patiently, outside the flow, waiting for the inevitable moment when human curiosity once again stumbles upon its shore, and someone will stay. Not because they are foolish, but because time is seductive. The promise of rest without decay, memory without loss, existence without consequence. Who wouldn't want to linger? But that is the trap. Without time, there is no meaning, no urgency, no reason to move forward. Identity dissolves when nothing forces it to change. Thought loops inward. Experience loses contrast. What begins as stillness becomes stagnation. The warning carved into stone was not an act of hostility. It was mercy. Do not stay. Not because the island will kill you, but because it won't let you live. Some places are not meant for humans, not because we are weak, but because we are temporal. We are defined by our movement through time, by the fact that every moment is unrepeatable. Take that away and we become echoes, present but unfinished. Somewhere, beyond maps and memory, the island remains exactly as it was. The waves still break with identical rhythm. The trees still refuse the wind. The sky still does not move, and time still waits, not for the world to find it, but for someone, someday, to forget the warning and stay.
Shadows crawl where the